Morgan Freeman steps onto the Empire Express, a luxury train bound for Chicago, clutching a lifetime pass and a quiet dignity. In the elite Aurora car, Elizabeth Harper, a wealthy socialite, eyes him with disdain, sparking a chain of prejudice that threatens to derail his journey. When she frames him for a costly mistake, the tension explodes. Keanu Reeves, unnoticed until now, rises from his seat, his calm words cutting through the arrogance like a blade. What happens when two legends confront a world built on exclusion? Will a single moment on this train change hearts, spark a movement, or fade into the night? From Los Angeles to Chicago, this is a story of courage, truth, and the fight for respect. Where are you watching from? Drop your city below and let's see how far this story travels. Keanu Reeves steps into the Aurora car of the Empire Express, a sanctuary of luxury where wealth whispers louder than words. He's dressed in a simple black shirt, his hair slightly tousled, a worn copy of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl tucked under his arm. At 60, Keanu carries the weight of a life lived generously, known for roles in The Matrix and John Wick, but more for his quiet acts of kindness, like giving up his seat on a subway or tipping waitstaff with hundreds. Here, though, he's just another passenger, slipping into a corner seat, unnoticed by the elite crowd. His eyes scan the car, not for glamour, but for truth. This train, bound for Chicago, isn't just a journey. It's a stage where dignity will be tested, and Keanu, ever the observer, senses it already. The Aurora car hums with privilege. Morgan Freeman, 87, boards with a stillness that commands respect, though few notice. His legacy, films like The Shawshank Redemption, and a voice that narrates the human soul, doesn't announce itself. He carries a leather-bound notebook and a gold-embossed lifetime pass, earned through his contributions to preserving the Empire Express. Declining a porter's help, he settles by a window, his scarf draped neatly, his presence a quiet defiance of the car's exclusivity. Keanu watches him from across the aisle, recognizing something deeper than fame. A man who's weathered storms of prejudice and emerged unbroken. The air feels charged, like the moment before a script flips to its defining scene. Keanu's mind drifts to why he's here. He's no stranger to trains or their stories. Rides across cities, listening to strangers' lives, grounding him after decades in Hollywood's spotlight. This trip, though, feels different. The Aurora car, with its velvet seats and polished wood, is a bubble of power, where status trumps humanity. Keanu's seen it before, boardrooms where wealth silences fairness, sets where crew members are dismissed as props. His book, Frankl's Meditation on Purpose, reminds him that meaning lies in how you face suffering, not in escaping it. As he flips a page, his gaze lingers on Morgan, sensing the older man's quiet strength. Keanu knows this car is a microcosm of a world quick to judge, and he's ready to witness what unfolds. The car's other passengers barely register Keanu or Morgan. They're too absorbed in their own orbits, clinking glasses, murmuring about investments. But one woman, Elizabeth Harper, locks onto Morgan with a stare sharp enough to cut. Her posture screams old money, her rings glinting as she sips champagne. She doesn't know Morgan's name, but his presence offends her carefully curated world. Keanu catches her glance, reading the disdain instantly. It's the same look he's seen directed at waiters, drivers, anyone deemed lesser. When Elizabeth snaps at a Latino porter for a minor delay, her voice dripping with entitlement, Keanu's grip tightens on his book. The porter apologizes, head bowed, and Keanu feels the familiar sting of injustice, a reminder of why he's always stood up for the overlooked. Morgan, undisturbed, opens his notebook and writes, "Every train carries a story. Not every story gets told." The words hit Keanu like a quiet thunderbolt, though he can't see them. He senses Morgan's depth, a man who's lived through segregation, rejection, and still chooses grace. Keanu's own life flashes through his mind, losing loved ones, navigating fame's isolation, yet finding purpose in small acts, like funding hospitals or listening to a stranger's pain. This car, he realizes, is a test. Will it amplify the worst in people, or will someone, maybe him, break the script of silence that lets prejudice thrive? The train lurches forward, its rhythm steady, but the tension in the Aurora car is anything but. Keanu leans back, his book resting on his lap, eyes darting between Morgan and Elizabeth. He knows what's coming. A collision of values, where dignity will either bend or hold firm. Morgan's calm, his pen moving deliberately, tells Keanu this isn't the older man's first battle, but Keanu's ready to play his part, not as a star, but as a man who believes respect is owed to everyone, not earned by wealth. The journey's just begun, and the real destination isn't Chicago, it's truth. Keanu Reeves sits in the Aurora car, his copy of Man's Search for Meaning now closed, his fingers tracing the spine as the Empire Express hums toward Chicago. The air feels thicker now, not from the train's motion, but from the undercurrent of judgment rippling through the car. Keanu's eyes, sharp and steady, fix on Elizabeth Harper, whose voice cuts through the soft clink of glasses like a shard of ice. She's leaning toward David Carter, a businessman in a tailored suit, her words dripping with condescension. "Standards have slipped," she says, loud enough for the car to hear, her gaze flickering toward Morgan Freeman. "This car used to mean something." Keanu's jaw tightens. He knows this script. Privilege masking prejudice as principle. He's seen it in Hollywood, where wealth buys silence, and he's fought it quietly, from tipping crew members generously to calling out unfair treatment on set. This moment, though, feels personal. Morgan sits across the aisle, his leather notebook open, pen moving with deliberate care. At 87, he carries a lifetime of battles, roles hard won against a system that once locked him out, a voice that narrates hope despite decades of slights. Keanu admires his stillness, the way he absorbs Elizabeth's barbed glances without flinching. But Elizabeth isn't done. She shifts in her seat, her pearl bracelet catching the light, and with a calculated flick of her wrist, it falls to the floor with a delicate clatter. Heads turn. "Oh," she gasps, her hand flying to her chest as she looks at Morgan. "You really must be more careful, sir. That's an heirloom." The accusation hangs heavy, a lie wrapped in etiquette. Keanu's pulse quickens. He knows this isn't about a bracelet. It's about power, about reminding Morgan he's an outsider in her world. The car stirs. David Carter raises an eyebrow, nodding vaguely at Elizabeth's performance. Other passengers glance over, some curious, some uncomfortable. Michael Thompson, the car's manager, steps forward, his charcoal vest pristine but his expression uneasy. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Harper?" he asks, his voice practiced but wavering. Elizabeth's smile is razor thin. "I'd hope not, Michael, but perhaps you could verify this gentleman's ticket, just to ensure there's no mix-up." The word lands like a slap. Keanu's fingers curl into a fist, his calm exterior masking a fire. He's seen this before. People using authority to humiliate, counting on silence to protect their cruelty. He stays still, but his mind races, replaying moments he stood up for others, like the time he paid for a stranger's groceries or defended a stunt double against a director's scorn. Morgan looks up, his eyes meeting Michael's with a quiet strength that cuts through the tension. Without a word, he reaches into his coat and hands over his gold-embossed lifetime pass, the seal of the Empire Express Preservation Fund glinting under the car's lights. Michael examines it, his face flushing. "It's valid, ma'am," he says, turning to Elizabeth. "More than valid." The words should end it, but Elizabeth's lips curl into a smirk. "How charming," she says, her voice honeyed venom. "One of those honorary passes, I presume? Quite generous." The insult lands harder than the bracelet, implying Morgan's presence as a gift, not a right. Keanu's breath catches. He knows Morgan's contributions built this very car, yet Elizabeth's words reduce him to a token. It's not just personal now. It's a mirror of every time societies dismiss someone for their skin, their age, their story. Sarah Nguyen, a young tech worker seated near the back, shifts uncomfortably. Her dark eyes dart between Morgan and Elizabeth, her phone resting on her lap. She feels the weight of the moment, her own memories surfacing. Being passed over for a promotion, told she didn't fit the company culture despite her skills. Sarah's heart aches for Morgan, seeing her own struggles reflected in his calm endurance. She wants to speak, to call out the injustice, but fear holds her tongue. Keanu notices her hesitation, recognizing the same conflict he's felt, wanting to act, but knowing the cost. His book lies forgotten now, its lessons about finding meaning in suffering alive in this car. He's not just a passenger anymore. He's a witness, and witnesses don't stay silent forever. Elizabeth's voice rises again, addressing David now. It's about tradition, she says, her words a thinly veiled attack. This car was meant for a certain caliber of person. Morgan keeps writing, his pen steady, but Keanu sees the slight tightening of his jaw. It's enough. Keanu's not ready to stand, not yet, but his stillness is no longer passive. He's mapping the room, the players, the stakes. This isn't just about Morgan. It's about a world that lets people like Elizabeth write the rules. Keanu's lived through loss, his sister's battle with leukemia, his own brushes with grief, and he's learned that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. As Elizabeth's words echo, Keanu knows the real conflict is coming, and when it does, he'll be ready to rewrite the ending. Keanu Reeves leans forward in his seat, the Aurora car's velvet cushion no longer a comfort but a reminder of the privilege suffocating the air. His eyes, usually soft with empathy, now burn with quiet intensity as Elizabeth Harper's voice weaves a web of disdain. She's holding court now, her words sharp and deliberate, aimed at Morgan Freeman, but meant for the entire car. It's not personal, she says to a small circle of passengers, her champagne glass tilted just so, but some people simply don't belong in a place like this. It dilutes the experience. The comment lands like a stone in still water, rippling through the car. Keanu's fingers tighten around man's search for meaning, the book's weight grounding him. He's seen this before, on film sets, in upscale restaurants, where wealth turns exclusion into an art form. But here, watching Morgan, it feels like a wound reopening. Morgan sits by the window, his leather notebook open, pen scratching softly. At 87, he's a monument to resilience, his roles in Driving Miss Daisy and The Shawshank Redemption only a fraction of his story. Yet Elizabeth's words chip away at him, not because they're new, but because they're familiar. Keanu catches the flicker in Morgan's eyes, patience laced with sorrow. Morgan's gaze drifts to the window, the world outside a blur of darkness. Keanu can't know what he's thinking, but he senses the weight of memory. Morgan's mind drifts to the 1960s, to a casting room where a director dismissed him with a single glance, saying, "We need someone different." The rejection wasn't just about the role, it was about his existence. Keanu, watching, feels a pang of recognition. He's fought his own battles, grief, scrutiny, the industry's cold calculations. But Morgan's quiet endurance is a masterclass in grace under fire. Elizabeth's campaign gains traction. A woman in her 60s, Linda Evans, nods along, her pearl earrings glinting as she adds, "I agree, Elizabeth. This car is for legacy, not charity cases." The words sting, not just Morgan but the car's fragile conscience. Other passengers shift uncomfortably, some avoiding eye contact, others sipping their drinks to stay neutral. Keanu's heart sinks. He knows this silence. It's the same one that lets injustice fester. He's witnessed it in Hollywood, where crew members were berated without defense, or when he saw a homeless man ignored outside a gala. Keanu's own life, marked by loss, his sister's illness, his stillborn daughter, taught him that silence is complicity. His eyes lock on Morgan, whose pen pauses, then resumes, writing something deliberate. Keanu doesn't need to see the words to feel their weight. Morgan writes, "My mother worked trains like this," she said. "Dignity is heavier than gold, but it's free." The memory anchors him. His mother, a Pullman car maid, faced daily slights, but carried herself with pride, teaching him that worth isn't tied to wealth or approval. Keanu, unaware of the exact words, senses Morgan's strength, a man who's faced a lifetime of Elizabeth's and still chooses to rise above. It stirs something in Keanu, a memory of his own, standing up for a stunt double who was unfairly fired, or quietly funding a children's hospital because he knew what it was to hurt. This car, he realizes, is a battleground, not just for Morgan, but for the idea that every person deserves respect, no questions asked. Elizabeth's voice grows bolder, her audience expanding. "It's about preserving what makes this car special," she says, her eyes flicking to Morgan. "We can't let just anyone redefine tradition." The word tradition lands like a verdict, and Linda's approving nod seals it. Keanu's patience frays. He's not angry, Anger is too simple. It's the deeper ache of seeing someone like Morgan, whose voice has soothed millions, reduced to a target. Keanu's mind races, piecing together the car's dynamics, the passenger's silence, Michael's hesitation, Sarah Nguyen's troubled frown from the back. Sarah, still clutching her phone, looks like she wants to act but doesn't know how. Keanu gets it. He's been there, frozen by the fear of making a scene. But Morgan's calm, his pen moving like a heartbeat, tells Keanu this moment demands more than observation. The car's hum feels louder now, or maybe it's the tension amplifying every sound. Morgan closes his notebook, his fingers lingering on the cover, as if sealing a vow. Keanu's eyes meet his for a fleeting second, a silent acknowledgement of shared understanding. This isn't just about one man's seat, it's about a system that lets people like Elizabeth wield power unchecked. Keanu's not ready to speak, not yet, but his stillness is a promise. He's seen enough to know that when the moment comes, he'll stand, not as a star, but as a man who believes dignity isn't negotiable. The train rolls on, but the real journey is just beginning, and Keanu's ready to face it head-on. The Aurora car feels like a pressure cooker, the air thick with unspoken judgments as Elizabeth Harper's campaign against Morgan Freeman reaches its peak. Keanu Reeves, seated across the aisle, feels the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. His copy of Man's Search for Meaning lies forgotten, his hands clenched, not in anger but in resolve. Elizabeth, emboldened by the car's earlier silence, escalates her attack. With a theatrical flourish, she lifts a crystal goblet, then lets it slip from her fingers, the glass shattering on the polished floor with a sound like breaking trust. Gasps ripple through the car. "Oh my!" she exclaims, her eyes locking onto Morgan. "How careless of you, sir! That was an antique!" Her voice is a blade, accusing Morgan of a crime he didn't commit. She turns to Michael Thompson, the car's manager, her tone icy. "This man should leave. He's clearly out of place." Morgan, 87, sits unmoved, his leather notebook closed, his eyes steady but heavy with the weight of a lifetime facing such accusations. His silence isn't surrender, it's a shield, forged through years of navigating a world quick to judge. Keanu, 60, feels a surge of protectiveness. He's known Morgan's work, The Shawshank Redemption, Driving Miss Daisy, but it's the man's quiet dignity that grips him now. The car buzzes with whispers, passengers leaning forward, some nodding at Elizabeth's demand. The injustice is suffocating, a reminder of every time Keanu's seen someone dismissed for their skin, their status, or their story. He thinks of his own life, losing his daughter, his sister's battle with leukemia, and how those losses taught him that every soul deserves to be seen, not judged. He can't stay silent anymore. Keanu stands, his movement deliberate, his black shirt slightly rumpled but his presence commanding. The car falls quiet, all eyes on him. He steps toward Morgan's table, his boots soft against the wood floor, and faces Elizabeth. His voice is low, steady, but cuts like steel. "What you just dropped wasn't glass," he says, pausing to let the words sink in. "It was the last bit of decency you had." The car freezes, Elizabeth's smirk faltering. Keanu's not done. This isn't about a goblet or a bracelet. It's about you deciding who belongs based on your own small view of the world. His words aren't loud, but they carry the weight of a man who's lived through grief and chosen kindness over bitterness. He glances at Morgan, a silent nod of respect, then back at Elizabeth. The real crime here is everyone else's silence. Keanu's gaze sweeps the car, challenging the passengers who've stayed quiet. "I've seen this before," he continues, his voice softening but no less piercing. "A grip on a film set, treated like dirt, worked 16-hour days. I gave him my motorcycle because he deserved respect, not scraps." The memory grounds him, a reminder of why he's speaking now. "I learned something when I lost people I loved," he says, his voice catching slightly. "Everyone deserves to be seen, not judged. You're not just attacking him, you're attacking that truth." The car is breathless, Sarah Nguyen clutching her phone, eyes wide. Even David Carter, the businessman, shifts uncomfortably, his earlier indifference cracking. Elizabeth opens her mouth, but before she can respond, Michael steps forward, his face pale but resolute. "Mrs. Harper," he says, his voice shaky. "There's something you should know." He turns to Morgan, a gesture of deference. Mr. Freeman isn't just a passenger. He's the primary benefactor of the Empire Express restoration. This car exists because of him. The revelation lands like a thunderclap. Elizabeth's face drains of color, her rings glinting as her hand trembles. Passengers gasp, some whispering Morgan's name, others recognizing him now, his voice, his legacy. Linda Evans, who'd sided with Elizabeth, looks away, her pearl earrings no longer a badge of pride. Sarah's eyes fill with tears, her phone still in hand, capturing the moment. Keanu doesn't move, his eyes locked on Elizabeth, not with triumph, but with clarity. "You thought you could write him out of this story," he says softly. "But this is his story. We're just passing through it." Morgan, still seated, meets Keanu's gaze, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. The car feels different now, the air lighter but charged with reckoning. Keanu's words have cracked the facade of privilege, exposing the fragility of Elizabeth's power. Morgan's silence, paired with Keanu's courage, has shifted the car's gravity. The passengers, once complicit, now face a choice: stay silent or confront their own biases. Keanu steps back, his role clear, not a hero, but a man who stood when it mattered. The train hums on, but the real journey toward truth and respect has just reached its turning point. The Aurora car feels like a held breath, the silence following Keanu Reeves' stand and Michael Thompson's revelation about Morgan Freeman's legacy heavier than the train's steady hum. Elizabeth Harper sits frozen, her champagne glass abandoned, her attempt to reclaim control unraveling. "This is absurd," she says, her voice thin, grasping for authority. "I meant no harm. It was a simple misunderstanding." But her words fall flat, drowned by the weight of her actions. The passengers, once her audience, now avert their eyes, their silence no longer complicity, but judgment. Michael, his face etched with resolve, steps forward. "Mrs. Harper," he says evenly, "perhaps you'd be more comfortable in another car." The suggestion isn't a request. Elizabeth's lips part, but no retort comes. Clutching her handbag, she rises, her heels clicking sharply as she exits, the door's soft hiss sealing her departure. The car exhales. But the reckoning is just beginning. Keanu, still standing near Morgan's table, feels the shift. At 60, he's no stranger to moments like this, calling out injustice on a film set, quietly funding a stranger's medical bills. But this feels bigger, a ripple that could become a wave. He glances at Morgan, 87, whose calm presence anchors the car. Morgan's eyes, deep with wisdom, meet Keanu's, a silent thank you passing between them. The passengers' gazes now turn to Morgan, not with curiosity, but with reverence. Some whisper his name, connecting the man before them to the voice that narrated the Shawshank Redemption. Sarah Gwen, the young tech worker, breaks the quiet. "Mr. Freeman," she says, her voice trembling, "I recorded it, the whole thing. Should I post it?" Her phone trembles in her hand, a tool for truth or exposure. Morgan leans forward, his voice low but resonant. "Truth doesn't hide if you give it light." The words land like a vow, and Sarah nods, tears brimming. David Carter, the businessman who'd once nodded at Elizabeth's barbs, clears his throat. He stands, his suit slightly creased, his face flushed with shame. "Mr. Freeman," he says, "I owe you an apology. I sat there, said nothing. I've done the same at my company, ignored things I shouldn't have." His voice cracks, revealing a man confronting his own failures. "I'll do better." Morgan nods, not with judgment but with understanding, his silence inviting reflection. Keanu watches, his heart stirred. He's seen this before. People waking up, like the time he overheard a fan's story of loss and paid for her therapy, no questions asked. But Morgan's presence, his ability to turn pain into grace, elevates this moment. Keanu feels it. This car isn't just a train, it's a mirror, forcing everyone to see themselves. Morgan sets his notebook down, his fingers tracing its worn cover. "Let me tell you something," he says, his voice a warm current pulling the car in. "Years ago, I was turned away from a train like this, not because of a ticket, but because of my skin." The car stills, every ear straining. The porter looked at me, said, "You don't ride here." I was young, thought I could argue, but my mother, she pulled me back, said, "You don't fight hate with fists. You fight it with who you become." The story, simple yet searing, cracks the car's polished veneer. Passengers lean forward, some with tears, others with bowed heads. Keanu's chest tightens, his own losses, his daughter, his sister, echoing in Morgan's words. He knows this truth. Dignity isn't won by shouting, it's carved by enduring. Sarah, wiping her eyes, speaks up. "My mom," she says, her voice breaking. "She's an immigrant. Worked at a fancy restaurant, got called names, treated like nothing. I filmed this for her to show her fight matters." Her tears fall freely now, and Morgan's gaze softens, a fatherly warmth radiating. "Your mother's fight is yours," he says. "And this video, it's her victory too." Sarah nods, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Keanu feels the weight of her story, remembering his own quiet acts, donating millions to cancer research, sitting with a homeless man to share a meal. This car, he realizes, is knitting together stories of struggle, each one a thread in a larger tapestry of resistance. The passengers shift, their postures less rigid, their faces open. Linda Evans, who'd sided with Elizabeth, stares at her hands, her pearl earrings dull in the light. David scribbles a note, perhaps a reminder to change his company's ways. Keanu steps back, his role as catalyst complete, but his heart remains with Morgan, whose story has turned the car into a sanctuary of reflection. The train rolls on, but the Aurora car is no longer a bubble of privilege. It's a space where truth has taken root. Morgan's words, Sarah's tears, and Keanu's stand have planted something unbreakable, a seed of change that will grow beyond this journey. The Aurora car hums with a new energy, the silence now warm, not heavy, as the Empire Express carries its passengers toward Chicago. Keanu Reeves sits across from Morgan Freeman, the space between them no longer just an aisle but a bridge built on shared understanding. The car's other passengers, Sarah Nguyen, David Carter, even Linda Evans, seem softer. Their faces lit with introspection after Morgan's story and Keanu's stand. Keanu, 60, feels the moment's weight, his heart still racing from the confrontation. He's no stranger to fighting for what's right, quietly funding hospitals, defending underpaid crew members. But this feels different, like a spark that could ignite change beyond the train. Morgan, 87, leans back, his leather notebook resting on the table, his eyes carrying the calm of a man who's seen the world's cruelty and chosen to outlast it. Keanu breaks the quiet, his voice low, meant only for Morgan. "I've seen things like this," he says, "on sets, in life. People dismissed, erased. I try to stand up, but you make it look like art." Morgan chuckles, a sound like warm gravel. "Art's just pain with purpose," he replies. "I learned that young, watching my father work the rails, treated like a shadow." Keanu nods, his own losses, his daughter, his sister, echoing in Morgan's words. "I lost people," Keanu admits. "It taught me to see the ones still here." Morgan's gaze softens, a silent bond forming. Keanu reaches for his copy of Man's Search for Meaning, its pages worn from use, and slides it across the table. "Read this," he says, pointing to a marked passage. "The meaning of life is found in every moment of living." Morgan accepts it, his fingers tracing the words, a gift sealing their connection. Sarah Nen, her eyes still red from tears, stands, her voice tentative but growing stronger. "What if we did something?" she asks the car. "A pledge, right here, to fight bias, not just today but always. We could send it to the Empire Express board." The idea catches like kindling. David Carter, the businessman, nods, his earlier shame now fuel for action. "I'm in," he says, "and I'll review my company's hiring, no more overlooking talent for fit." Linda Evans, her pearl earrings catching the light, raises a hesitant hand. "I'll sign," she says, her voice small but sincere. The car buzzes, passengers pulling out pens, napkins, anything to contribute. Keanu watches, his heart swelling. He's seen small acts ripple, donating millions to charity, sharing a meal with a stranger. But this is a collective awakening, and it's powerful. Morgan picks up a pen, his hand steady, and writes on a sheet passed around. "We don't change the world by shouting. We change it by seeing." The words, simple yet profound, draw murmurs of agreement. Sarah, reading them, smiles through tears. Keanu leans toward Morgan, his voice quiet. Why the train? Why fund it? Morgan's eyes drift to the window, the darkness outside a canvas for memory. My father, he says, worked trains like this, cleaned cars, carried bags, got called names. He dreamed of a day when everyone could ride equal. I funded this to honor him, to make his dream real. The confession lands softly but deeply, and Keanu feels a lump in his throat. He thinks of his own quiet tributes, funding cancer research for his sister, living simply despite fame, and sees Morgan's gift for what it is, a legacy of love. The passengers pass the pledge, each adding a line, a promise. Sarah writes for her mother, vowing to amplify the voiceless. David commits to equity in his boardroom. Even Michael, the manager, signs, pledging to train staff on inclusion. Keanu doesn't write, but his presence, his stand, his gift to Morgan speaks louder than words. The car feels like a community now, not a hierarchy. Morgan closes his notebook, his father's dream alive in this moment. Keanu looks at him, seeing not just a legend, but a man who turned pain into purpose. The train rolls on, but the pledge, like the stories shared, is a destination in itself. A step toward a world where dignity isn't a privilege but a right. The Empire Express glides into Chicago's Union Station. The morning sun spilling through the Aurora car's windows, casting a golden glow on Morgan Freeman's coat, still faintly stained from Elizabeth Harper's accusation. The car, once a battleground of prejudice, now hums with a quiet unity, the pledge against bias binding its passengers like a shared heartbeat. Keanu Reeves, 60, stands by the door, his black shirt slightly wrinkled, his copy of Man's Search for Meaning left with Morgan as a testament to their bond. Morgan, 87, gathers his leather notebook, his scarf draped neatly, his presence a lighthouse in the storm they've weathered. Keanu feels the weight of the journey, not the miles, but the shift in the car, in himself. He stood up before funding charities, defending the overlooked, but this moment, sparked by Morgan's grace, feels like a legacy unfolding. As passengers disembark, Keanu and Morgan pause on the platform, the bustle of Union Station fading into the background. Keanu's eyes, soft but resolute, meet Morgan's. You didn't just remind me who I am, he says, his voice steady. You reminded me who we can be. Morgan smiles, a warmth that carries decades of resilience. We're just storytellers, Keanu, he replies, but sometimes the story changes the room. Their handshake is brief but heavy, a silent vow to carry this moment forward. Keanu steps back, his heart full, knowing this goodbye isn't an end but a beginning. He thinks of his own quiet acts, donating millions to cancer research, sitting with strangers in their pain, and sees Morgan's life as a blueprint for turning wounds into wisdom. Sarah Gwynn, lingering nearby, uploads her video to social media, her fingers trembling with purpose. For my mom, she captions it, and for everyone who's been unseen. The clip, Elizabeth's accusation, Keanu's stand, Morgan's story, spreads like wildfire, igniting a campaign against bias. Hashtags bloom, stories of discrimination and defiance flood the internet, and the Empire Express pledge becomes a rallying cry. Sarah watches the views climb, tears in her eyes, knowing her mother's struggles, once invisible, now fuel a movement. Keanu, unaware of the video's reach, feels its echo in the car's transformed air, a testament to the power of one moment, one voice. Morgan finds a bench on the platform, the station's chaos, a distant hum. He opens Keanu's book, his fingers tracing the marked passage. The salvation of man is through love and in love. The words resonate, a mirror to his father's dream of equality, to his own life of narrating hope through films like The Shawshank Redemption. He smiles, knowing this train carried more than passengers. It carried change. A young boy, no older than 8, approaches, his eyes wide. You sound like the guy from the movies, he says, clutching a toy train. Morgan chuckles, his voice a gentle rumble. And you've got a story too, young man. Tell it loud. The boy grins, running back to his mother, and Morgan's heart swells. This, he thinks, is why he funded the train, for moments where dreams, not divisions, take root. The passengers scatter, but the Aurora car's lesson lingers. David Carter drafts an email to his board, vowing equitable hiring. Linda Evans, her pearl earrings tucked away, calls her daughter to apologize for old prejudices. Sarah's video continues to spread, inspiring petitions, workshops, and stories of others standing up. Keanu boards a cab, his mind on Morgan's words, ready to live even more intentionally. Perhaps funding a scholarship, perhaps listening longer to a stranger's pain. Morgan remains on the bench, the book in his lap, the sun warming his face. He knows the world won't change overnight, but this journey proved it can shift, one heart at a time. True class isn't where you sit or what you own, it's how you lift others when the world tries to push them down. The Empire Express rolls on, but its real destination was reached in the Aurora car, where dignity triumphed and a pledge became a promise. Morgan closes the book, the boy's words echoing, "Tell it loud," and in that golden morning, he knows they all will. This story of Morgan and Keanu on the Empire Express hits hard because it's not just a tale, it's a mirror. I believe dignity isn't a privilege, it's a right. And standing up, like Keanu did, is how we rewrite a world quick to judge. But maybe you see it differently. Perhaps silence feels safer, or change seems too slow. That's okay. Let's talk about it. What's your take? Have you witnessed or challenged injustice? Share your story in the comments. I read every one. Huge thanks for watching. Your support fuels these stories. If this moved you, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell for more tales of courage and truth. Tell us where you're watching from, your city, your corner of the world. Let's keep this conversation alive and prove that even the quietest moments can echo the loudest